What is going on, everybody? I go by the name of Curry, and I want to thank you guys for joining me here today on SneakerPhetish. I'm a little late to the game with this one. I apologize for that, but today we are talking about a really exclusive limited edition Air Force One that recently dropped. It's the second version of the sneaker to drop if we're not including the super exclusive Korea-only edition. But of course, today you can tell by the box, we are talking about G-Dragon. Now, who exactly is G-Dragon? We'll get into that in just a minute, but before we get into all of that and the shoe, let's take a quick look at the box. Now, for this sneaker, you guys have seen the regular version of the Paranoise Air Force Ones, and the box is no different than the original box. It has G-Dragon's artwork that's on both sides of the box, as you can see here. It looks like graffiti almost. There's a lot going on underneath. This sneaker is all about the layers and the different aspects of it, and not just what meets the eye. Keeping with that theme, of course, you see the graffiti kind of in the background, a lot of different writing, but you also see the daisy with the yellow center right smack dab in the middle of the box here. On the other side of the box here, you see that same print underneath here, but now it looks like some spray paint or some paint here that says the flower is the youth of life. And that's kind of the theming of this entire sneaker. I'll dig into that a little bit more as well, but there's one more piece of this box and this packaging that I really liked when you slide the drawer out. By the way, Nike, I like how y'all got this one right with the drawer style box with the finger hole in here. Still don't understand why on the Jubilee box you gave us a finger hole with no drawer, but whatever. Now, the paper is really dope when you actually pay attention to it. Now, the first thing you notice, of course, is a Nike swoosh, and you have some Korean that's written over the swoosh. Now, what this translates to is Kunyal He. Now, what that means is just do it in Korean. Now, in addition to Kunyal He, that's right above the swoosh, you guys will notice instead of where it would say registered or trademark right by the swoosh and by just do it, that's actually been replaced by the PeaceMinusOne logo. PeaceMinusOne, of course, being G-Dragon's brand, his label, his creative studio, all that good stuff. Boom. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Air Force One by PeaceMinusOne, Nike, and G-Dragon. First things first, this sneaker sold out immediately on the Sneakers app. I didn't get my hands on it through the Sneakers app. I was lucky enough to win an Instagram raffle that was done through my guys over at Rooted, which is a boutique that's based in Nashville, Tennessee. So big thank you over to Rooted for allowing me to get this sneaker. This is definitely a delayed W because I thought I took a massive L on these, but here they are. This is one of the most beautiful sneakers as far as quality, execution, and inspiration that I've personally seen all 2020. It's an incredible sneaker. The predecessor for this sneaker, the black version, was an amazing sneaker as well. This time we get a reverse version of that. But before I say too much, let's take a deeper look. All right, starting with the upper of the sneaker here. Now, of course, as we all know, the upper on this sneaker is very unique. Now, it looks primarily like a white Air Force One with a black swoosh. You guys remember on the previous version of the Paranoise Air Force One, you got black on the upper with a white swoosh. So really, it's pretty much the invert of everything that the previous sneaker was. So let's get into the build and the materials of this sneaker. The standard materials on this sneaker are very good. You guys notice there's a tumbled swoosh here on the lateral and medial side, this black leather here. It's a little more upgraded. Everything about this sneaker's materials are a little bit more upgraded, and to me, that in addition to the multi-dimensions of this sneaker contribute to justifying the $200 price tag. Now, before we get to the paint on the upper, let's talk about the paint on the midsoles. Now, you guys see here, this looks kind of like a brush stroke, almost like somebody was painting all over the shoe, and there was this brush stroke here on the midsole. Now, that is not done by a machine, that's actually done by hand. Seriously, the workers that actually made these sneakers overseas, they were actually taught to brush stroke the midsole and the outsoles on this sneaker to kind of put their own touch on the shoe. And that is a really dope Easter egg. I don't know if everybody knew about that sneaker. You'll also notice, even if you have a pair, you can look on your own pair as well, the brush strokes on both the lateral and the medial side of both of these sneakers is different. And the reason why it's different, obviously, is because when you're literally doing this by hand, no two brush strokes are going to look exactly the same. That right there makes me impressed with the sneaker already, but let's dig a little bit deeper. Taking a top down look at the shoe here, there's two really important things about this sneaker looking at this view that I want us to take into consideration. Number one are the fat black laces on here. For an Air Force One, these are some really fat laces. I'm not used to us seeing laces this thick on an Air Force One, but I like it. The second thing is not just the emblem on the tongue that we'll talk about in a moment, but it's the quality of the tongue tumbled leather on the tongue as well. They upgraded the tongue on here and gave us that same tumbled leather that's on the swooshes on the lateral and medial side as well. Now let's talk about the daisy here. Now obviously that's for PeaceMinusOne. That is G-Dragon's thing. However, you'll notice again, it's the inverted version of what we had on the black pair. On the black pair, we had white petals on the daisy. This time we have black petals on the daisy. Now we'll get into this a little bit more in depth as we take a closer look, but just take note of where exactly the petal is missing. All right, let's get into the extras on this. The first extra we have here is a white set of those fat laces in case you want to go back to the classic white and you don't want to do the contrasting black. Now the white laces have black lace tips with the daisy on the ends. The black laces, as you can see here, they say PE on the lace tips and they're red this time. Now the PE, of course, is the same PE as the beginning of the PeaceMinusOne logo. Now with that, we also get a very interesting freebie with these as well. And this, I believe, is why the laces were so fat. You guys will notice here, these are like buttons, little screw-on buttons here that you can actually put into the eyelets on the sneaker. Now, each one of these buttons has something a little bit different. One has the PeaceMinusOne logo, one has the daisy. I think one has the daisy again, but you'll notice how big the eyelets are here where the laces go in. And the reason why they're so big is so that they can, number one, accommodate the fat laces, but number two, they can accommodate screwing in these big eyelet covers here as well. So it's a really dope artistic way to express yourself individually on the sneaker. I like that. Now, the third freebie that we get on the Paranoise Air Force One is the really interesting looking Backstage pass sticker. And it really is a sticker here. You guys will notice on the back, you can actually peel this off and you can actually put it on yourself, very similar to Backstage passes. Now, of course, you see that daisy there again with that petal missing. We'll talk about that. You see artist G-Dragon titled the Nike Air Force One Paranoise, and underneath that, Just Do It Nike 1988 with the PeaceMinusOne logo right underneath. Now, why does it say 1988? What's so important about that? I'm glad you asked. G-Dragon was born in 1988. As a matter of fact, not only was Kwon Ji Young, aka G-Dragon, born in 1988, but he was born on August the 18th, 1988. 8/18/88. So the number 8 means a lot to G-Dragon. Now, getting back to what I mentioned about the daisy and where this petal is missing. If this flower were a clock, the petal is missing right at 8 o'clock. Again, the number 8 is very important to G-Dragon, and he wanted to make sure that he incorporated that throughout the PeaceMinusOne design. Moving around to the back of the sneaker here, you have the classic Nike Air in black stitching, the same tumbled leather, that little upgraded leather on the heel tab as well, and you also get this standard black strip of paint here right on the heel of the shoe as well. As far as the outsole of the shoe, like I mentioned, you still get that paint on the outsole that kind of matches the midsole as well. If you guys remember the promo video for the original Paranoise Air Force One, you remember that video where G-Dragon was painting in his studio and was painting all over the sneaker, a bunch of different colors and everything, and then poured all the black paint on top of the sneaker that kind of mimicked what the shoe would look like? That's exactly what we have here with the brush strokes on the midsole. Again, it really is just an inverted version of exactly what the black pair was. I love the idea of the black pair, try to get my hands on them. Couldn't do it. So of course the paint on the bottom of the sneaker here on the outsole is made to mimic painting all over the sneaker and stepping in the paint as well. Inside of the collar here, you'll notice the PeaceMinusOne logo. It's not very often that you actually get a big bold logo of the collaborative brand, whoever is doing it, with the Air Force One, but in this case, we got it right here. Let's talk about the obvious part that I missed, which was the paint that's on the upper of this sneaker. I'm gonna go in real close and you guys can notice here that there's already some cracks in the paint here. This paint is designed to very easily chip off and come off of the sneaker to reveal the design underneath. If you want to know what the design looks like underneath, you can either look at the box or you can look at the insoles. On the insoles of the shoe, it looks exactly like the sides of the box here. Each insole represents a different side of the actual box of the sneaker. You have the flower is the youth of life on this insole, and then you have the little daisy emblem on that insole. Very, very dope. But again, I'm actually being very, very careful handling this sneaker because you guys can see here, it kind of looks like an eggshell cracking. So it's very fragile, and G-Dragon designed the sneaker to be like that, for it to be very easy for the paint to chip away on the upper of the sneaker to reveal that design underneath. I love that. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the G-Dragon and PeaceMinusOne Paranoise 2.0 Air Force One. Now, who in the world, first of all, is G-Dragon? I'm glad you asked. If you're not really big into K-pop, it's understandable why you wouldn't really know who G-Dragon is. But if you have been into K-pop in the last I don't know, 10 years, you know exactly who G-Dragon is, because G-Dragon has been one of the most prominent rappers and singers on the K-pop scene in quite some time. G-Dragon has kind of done it all. G-Dragon is a designer, he's a singer, again, he's a rapper, he's been on television. Matter of fact, G-Dragon even joined the army and just got out of the military over in Asia, I believe last year. So G-Dragon is a cultural icon and a cultural phenomenon, and not only because his sneaker was limited, but also because of his impact and his influence overseas. That's the reason why these sneakers are worth so much money. I mean, it's an Air Force One theoretically, but number one, it's a $200 Air Force One, where a regular pair is only gonna cost you about $98 with tax. And on top of that, this sneaker right now is selling for around $500. Now, while everybody gets caught up with the hype of the sneaker, I really want you guys to understand and appreciate the inspiration behind the sneaker, because as I mentioned, there's a lot of it in here. Number one, let's talk about the flower. Now, the flower represents something that can be beautiful or sorrowful at the same time. And what I mean by that is, when you look at a flower, most flowers, they look very pretty. You like looking at them. But the sad thing about the flower is that as flowers start to lose their petals, people start to get a little bit sad, because they know that the flower is probably going to be dying pretty soon. And that actually was one of the inspirations behind the sneaker, is to kind of enjoy what you have for the moment, because you never know when it might start to wilter or fade or go away. And that goes for not just flowers, but for people, relationships, and just life in general. Now, paranoise. Where in the world does the word paranoise even come from? Well, G-Dragon actually said in an interview that the idea behind the word and the concept of paranoise has to do with the fact that throughout our lives, every moment of our life, you could equate to a sound or a noise. And the concept of every moment of our lives kind of branches off in two directions. Number one, if you take a look at the culmination of all the moments of your life, combine all those noises together and put them side by side with one another, it becomes a paranoise. Now, the word para is actually a Greek word that means beside or to the side of. So the inspiration behind that was comparing all those moments to your life, thinking back over all the moments of your life, lining them up side by side with one another, you would have a paranoise. Now, not only that, but it also speaks to the society that we live in today, because as you're living your life and every moment is a noise, everybody else that's around you that we come into contact with every day, they're living their lives and every moment of their life is a noise as well. So there's a paranoise that's going on. That's our society and our culture as a whole. But on top of that, he also wanted the idea of the paint chipping away to really be the concept that everybody has more than one layer to them, more than one aspect to them. And we have to respect and enjoy the beauty that comes from what lies beneath our surface. With inspiration in a sneaker like that, it's no surprise that this sneaker is so coveted and so many people want it. Not only does this sneaker represent what Nike is trying to do by expanding their global footprint, by collaborating with global superstars, but it also makes sure that Nike keeps intact the idea of storytelling and true inspiration and richness in their sneakers as well. Now, my job is to show you guys the hype sneakers, but to also give you guys the knowledge that goes behind the sneakers. And the Paranoise 2.0 Air Force One was a perfect combination of that. Guys, this is a special sneaker. This sneaker is a work of art inside and out. When you peel off the layers of the sneaker, it's a beautiful shoe underneath. But even just appreciating it in its natural form before you peel off the layers, it's also a very dope shoe. We've seen Nike doing a really dope job lately of collaborating not just with artists, but with certain groups of people and nationalities and ethnicities to make sure that a light is shined on everybody around the world, not just one specific group or even one specific country. We've gone to Colombia for the J Balvins. We've gone to Korea for the G-Dragon Paranoise. We got the De Lo Mio project, which was incredible for the Dominican culture, and on and on and on. Nike continues to knock it out of the park with these types of projects, these passion projects where they link up with some incredible collaborators to make something really, really special. And for me, I'm honored to have these in my possession right now. So once again, shout out to Rooted for the W on these on their Instagram raffle, and shout out to Nike and of course G-Dragon for coming up with a second iteration of such a dope shoe. Now, before I go, one last thing. Apparently there is also a red version of these that was spotted on G-Dragon a little while ago. Rumor has it that there's going to be a red version of these that drops as well. We'll have to see how that goes. But in the meantime, These are the ones right here. These are really, really dope. Now, enough of me talking about these. It's time for you guys to sound off down in the comments. Let me know what you guys think about the G-Dragon and PeaceMinusOne Paranoise 2.0 Air Force One. Are these on your must-cop list? Did you have to have these, or did you take a hard pass on them? Let me know down in the comments. Either way, I would love to know. Of course, right down in the comments, make sure that you click on that subscribe button so we can welcome you into the Sneaker Fetish family to make sure you don't miss out on any more heat that comes through like these, because I guarantee you, I got a lot more heat on the way. As always, I want to thank you guys for joining me here today on Sneaker Fetish, taking a look at these with me, unboxing them with me for a couple of minutes. I go by the name of Kari. This is the PeaceMinusOne and G-Dragon Air Force One Low Paranoise 2.0. And until next time, I'm out.